All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're opening the file on the invisible battles that are happening all around us. And even inside of us, right now. We're talking about what causes disease and how a small problem in one place can explode into a global crisis. So let's start the briefing. First things first, here's a question I'm sure you've thought about. You start feeling sick, maybe you go to the doctor, but what's actually making you sick? Is it a virus or is it bacteria? They're totally different, and honestly, knowing how is the very first step to understanding your own health. Because really, that's what this is, a microscopic war. And in any war, rule number one is to know your enemy. Figuring out what these tiny agents are, how they work, and how they spread, well, that's not just for scientists. It's essential knowledge for just getting by in our world.
So let's meet the main players on this invisible battlefield. We're going to build a little dossier on the four big ones. We've got viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites.
Okay, this is basically the rap sheet on our four main suspects. Now, check out the core structure. A virus isn't even technically alive. It's just a bit of genetic code in a protein shell. But a bacterium, that's a living, single-celled organism. And that one difference changes literally everything, from how they make copies of themselves to the completely different weapons we have to use to fight them.
So, to finally answer that first question, think of it this way. Viruses are hijackers. They can't do a thing on their own. They have to break into your cells and use your cells' machinery to make more of themselves. Bacteria, though, they're more like invaders. They're self-sufficient. They can just set up shop and start multiplying all on their own. And that, right there, is why antibiotics, which are designed to kill bacteria, do absolutely nothing to a virus.
Next up in our lineup, fungi. Now, unlike bacteria, these are usually multicellular. And their secret weapon? Spores. These tiny little reproductive cells can just float through the air, which is how they get everywhere. And while a lot of fungi are harmless, some can actually attack living tissue. And I'm sure we all know someone whose allergies go crazy because of mold spores. And last up, we've got parasites. So here's a really common mix-up. Parasite isn't a scientific category like animal or fungus. It's more like a job description. A parasite is just any living thing that survives by feeding on a host. It could be a worm in your gut, a tick on your dog. It could even be a plant. It's all about that one-sided relationship.
All right, so we've met the enemies. Now let's talk about our defenses. Because we are not helpless in this fight, not by a long shot. Your body is running a super sophisticated military operation 24/7. And luckily for us, modern medicine has given us some pretty powerful new weapons to add to the arsenal.
Your immune system is basically your own personal security force, and it follows a really smart three-step plan. First, it detects that there's an intruder. Then it deploys the troops, in this case your white blood cells, to go fight it off. And then, and this is the really genius part, it remembers. It creates these little proteins called antibodies that are like a most wanted poster. So if that same bad guy ever shows up again, your body can take it out immediately.
And that remembering part is exactly how our medical counterattacks work. A vaccine is like a training exercise for your immune system. It teaches your body how to make those antibodies without you ever having to get the actual disease. And for when you're already sick, we've got specific tools for the job. Antivirals to fight viruses, and antibiotics to stop bacteria in their tracks. But this brings us to a really critical warning from the front lines. We've been using one of our best weapons, antibiotics, way too much. See, every time we use them, especially when we don't need to, we give bacteria a chance to evolve. The few tough ones that happen to survive a dose can then multiply, creating new, resistant strains that our best drugs just can't touch.
Okay, let's zoom out now. What happens when an infection isn't just in one person, but it starts spreading through a whole population? This is how a small, local skirmish can turn into a full-blown global war. And the words we use to describe that scale are actually very specific.
So, it all starts with what's called an outbreak. This is the first red flag. It just means we're seeing more cases of a sickness than we'd normally expect to see in a certain place at a certain time. It's that initial alarm bell ringing. Now, if that outbreak isn't stopped, it can grow into an epidemic. The key words here are rapidly and large number of people. The disease isn't just a little cluster anymore. It's actively and quickly spreading through a whole community or region. And the final stage, the highest level of alert, is a pandemic. A pandemic is simply an epidemic that has gone global. It's crossed international borders and is now affecting tons of people on different continents. You can really see the huge jump in scale here. Think of an outbreak as a small fire. An epidemic is when that fire spreads across the whole town. And a pandemic? That's when sparks from that fire have started new fires in towns all over the world. Just getting these three terms straight is so important for understanding the news.
So, after this crash course, what's the key intel you need to take away from all this? Let's quickly recap the mission-critical points from our tour of the invisible battlefield.
So, here's why all this actually matters to you. Knowing virus versus bacteria is why your doctor sometimes says, sorry, antibiotics won't help. Understanding your immune system's memory is what makes the whole idea of vaccines click. Seeing the danger of antibiotic resistance shows why we all have to be careful. And of course, knowing outbreak from pandemic helps you cut through the panic and understand what's really going on.
You know, we started this by saying you have to know your enemy, but the battlefield, it isn't some far-off place. It's our communities, it's our homes, it's our own bodies. So the real question isn't just what these things are, but now that you know, what are you going to do about it? Thanks for listening.